The Secrets of Enoch, Chapter 15. The elements of the sun, the phoenixes and chalktri, broke into song. Then the elements of the sun, called phoenixes and chalktri, broke into song. Therefore every bird flutters with its wings, rejoicing at the giver of light, and they broke into song at the command of the Lord. The giver of light comes to give brightness to the whole world, and the morning guard takes shape, which is the rays of the sun. And the sun of the earth goes out and receives its brightness to light up the whole face of the earth. And they showed me this calculation of the sun's going. And the gate which it enters, these are the great gates of the computation of the hours of the year. For this reason the sun is a great creation, whose circuit lasts 28 years and begins again from the beginning. Chapter 16. They took Enoch and again placed him in the east at the course of the sun. Those men showed me the other course, that of the moon, 12 great gates crowned from east to west, by which the moon goes in and out of the customary times. It goes in at the first gate to the western places of the sun, by the first gates which 31 days exactly, by the second gates which 31 days exactly, by the third with 31 days exactly, by the fourth with 30 days exactly, by the fifth with 31 days exactly, by the sixth with 31 days exactly, by the seventh with 30 days exactly, by the eighth with 31 days perfectly, by the ninth with 31 days exactly, by the 10th with 30 days perfectly, by the 11th with 31 days exactly, and by the 12th with 28 days exactly. And it goes through the western gates in the order and number of the eastern, and accomplishes the 365 and a quarter days of the solar year, while the lunar year has 354, and there are wanting to it 12 days of the solar circle, which are the lunar epochs of the whole year. Thus, too, the great circle contains 532 years. The quarter of a day is omitted for 3 years. The fourth fulfills it exactly. Therefore they are taken outside of heaven for 3 years, and are not added to the number of days, because they change the time of the years to new months towards completion, to others toward dimension. And when the western gates are finished, it returns and goes to the eastern to the lights, and goes thus day and night about the heavenly circles, lower than all circles, swifter than the heavenly winds, and spirits and elements and angels flying. Each angel has 6 wings. It has a 7-fold course and 19 angels, which it is impossible to describe. In the midst of the heavens I saw armed soldiers serving the Lord with tympana and organs, with incessant voice, with sweet and incessant voice, and various singing, which it is impossible to describe, and which astonishes every mind. So wonderful and marvelous is the singing of those angels, and I was delighted listening to it. Of the taking of Enoch on to the 5th heaven. The men took me on to the 5th heaven and placed me, and there I saw many and countless soldiers called Grigori, of human appearance, and their size was greater than that of great giants, and their faces withered, and the silence of their mouths perpetual, and there was no service on the 5th heaven. And I said to the men who were with me, Wherefore are these very withered, and their faces melancholy, and their mouths silent? And wherefore is there no service on this heaven? And they said to me, These are the Grigori, who with their prince Satanal projected, and the Lord of light, and after them are those who are held in great darkness on the 2nd heaven. And 3 of them went down onto the earth with the Lord's throne, to the place Hermon, and broke through their vows on the shoulder of the hill Hermon, and saw the daughters of men how good they are, and took to themselves wives, and befouled the earth with their deeds, who in all times of their age made lawlessness and mixing, and giants are born, and marvelous big men, and great enmity. And therefore God judged them with great judgment, and they weep for their brethren, and they will be punished on the Lord's day. And I said to the Grigori, I saw your brethren and their works and their great torments, and I prayed for them. But the Lord has condemned them to be under earth till heaven and earth shall end forever. And I said, Wherefore do you wait, brethren, and do not serve before the Lord's face, and have not put your services before the Lord's face, lest you anger your Lord utterly? And they listened to my admonition, and spoke to the four ranks in heaven. And lo, as I stood with those two men, four trumpets trumpeted, together with great voice. And the Grigori broke into song with one voice, and their voice went up before the Lord, pitifully and affectingly, of the taking of Enoch on to the sixth heaven. And thence those men took me and bore me up unto the sixth heaven, and there I saw 7 bands of angels, very bright and very glorious, and their faces shining more than the sun shining, glistening. And there is no difference in their faces or behavior or manner of dress, and these make the orders, and learn the goings of the stars, and the alteration of the moon, or revolution of the sun, and the good government of the world. And when they see evil doing, they make commandments and instruction, and sweet and loud singing, and all songs of praise. These are the archangels who are above angels, measure all life in heaven and on earth, and the angels who are appointed over seasons and years, the angels who are rule over rivers and sea, and who are over the fruits of the earth, and the angels who are over every grass, giving food to all, to every living thing, and the angels who write all the souls of men and their deeds and their lives before the Lord's face. In their midst are 6 phoenixes, and 6 cherubim, and 6 winged ones continually with one voice singing in one voice, and it is not possible to describe their singing, and they rejoice before the Lord at his footstool. Hence they took Enoch into the 7th heaven, and those 2 men lifted me up thence on to the 7th heaven. And I saw there a very great light, and fiery troops of great archangels, and incorporeal forces, and dominions, orders, and governments, cherubim and seraphim, thrones, and many-eyed ones, 1 regiments, the Ionite stations of light. And I became afraid, and began to tremble with great fear. And those men took me, and led me after them, and said to me, Have courage, Enoch, do not fear, and showed me the Lord from afar, sitting on his very high throne. For what is there on the 10th heaven? Since the Lord dwells here. On the 10th heaven is God. In the Hebrew tongue, he is called Aravat. And all the heavenly troops would come and stand on the 10 steps according to their rank, and would bow down to the Lord, and would again go to their places in joy and felicity, singing songs in the boundless light with small and tender voices, gloriously serving him. Oh, how the angels here left Enoch at the end of the 7th heaven, and went away from him unseen. And the cherubim and seraphim standing about the throne, the 6 winged and many-eyed ones do not depart, standing before the Lord's face, doing his will, and cover his whole throne, singing with gentle voice before the Lord's face, Holy, 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 Lord, ruler of Sabaoth, heavens and earth are full of thy glory. When I saw all these things, those men said to me, Enoch, thus far it is commanded us to journey with thee. And those men went away from me, and therefore I saw them not. And I remained alone at the end of the 7th heaven, and became afraid, and fell on my face, and said to myself, Woe is me! What has befallen me? And the Lord sent one of his glorious ones, the archangel Gabriel, and he said to me, Have courage, Enoch. Do not fear. Arise before the Lord's face into eternity. Arise, come with me. And I answered him and said in myself, My Lord, my soul is departed from me, from terror and trembling. And I called to the men who led me up to this place. On them I relied, and it is with them I go before the Lord's face. And Gabriel caught me as a leaf caught up by the wind, and placed me before the Lord's face. And I saw the eighth heaven, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Muzalath, changer of the seasons, of drought and of wet, and of the 12 signs of the zodiac which are above the seventh heaven. And I saw the ninth heaven, which is called in Hebrew Kukavim. There are the heavenly homes of the 12 signs of the zodiac. The 12th heaven, the archangel Michael led Enoch to before the Lord's face. On the 10th heaven, Arsvath, I saw the appearance of the Lord's face, like iron made to glow in fire, and brought out emitting sparks, and it burns. Thus I saw the Lord's face, but the Lord's face is ineffable, marvelous, and very awful, and very, very terrible. And who am I to tell of the Lord's unspeakable being, and of his very wonderful face? And I cannot tell the quantity of his many instructions, and various voices. The Lord's throne very great, and not made with hands, nor the quantity of those standing round him. Troops of cherubim and seraphim, nor their incessant singing, nor his immutable beauty. And who shall tell me of the ineffable greatness of his glory? And I fell prone and bowed down to the Lord. And the Lord with his lips said to me, Have courage, Enoch, do not fear. Arise and stand before my face into eternity. And the Archistrage Michael lifted me up and led me to before the Lord's face. And the Lord said to his servants tempting them, Let Enoch stand before my face into eternity. And the glorious ones bowed down to the Lord and said, Let Enoch go according to thy word. And the Lord said to Michael, Go and take Enoch from out of his earthly garments, and anoint him with my sweet ointment, and put into him the garments of my glory. And Michael did thus, as the Lord told him. He appointed me and dressed me, and the appearance of that ointment is more than the great light. And his ointment is like sweet dew, and its smell mild, shining like the sun's ray. And I looked at myself and was like one of his glorious ones. And the Lord summoned one of his archangels by name, Pravuel, whose knowledge was quicker in wisdom than any other archangels, who wrote all the deeds of the Lord. And the Lord said to Pravuel, Bring out the books from my storehouses, and a reed of quick writing, and give it to Enoch, and deliver to him the choice and comforting books out of thy hand. Of Enoch's writing, how he wrote his wonderful journeys and the heavenly apparitions, and himself wrote 366 books. And he was telling me all the works of heaven, earth and sea, and all the elements, their passages and goings, and the thunderings of the thunders, the sun and moon, the goings and changes of the stars, the seasons, years, days, and hours, and rising of the wind, the numbers of the angels and the formation of their songs, and all human beings, the tongue of every human song and life, the commandments, instructions, and sweet-voiced singings, and all things that it is fitting to learn. And Pravuel told me, All the things that I have told thee we have written. Sit and write all the souls of mankind, however many of them are born, and the places prepared for them to eternity. For all souls are prepared to eternity before the formation of the world. And all double 30 days and 30 nights. And I wrote out all things exactly, and wrote 366 books.